Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Cinema Heroes. I'm Justin Speck.
Jay Stu.
And today we're talking about Ant-Man and the Wasp, released in 2018, directed by Peyton Reed, written by Chris McKenna, Eric Summers, Paul Rudd, Andrew Barrer, I don't know, and Gabriel Ferrari. And starring Paul Rudd, Evangeline Lilly. Sorry, I'm like... The font is so small on this case that I'm just now having to do it from memory. Michael Douglas, Michelle Pfeiffer.
That the font is small.
That's very true, actually. Didn't think about that. Lawrence Fishburne, Michael Pena, and Walton Goggins. And I forget the name of the woman that plays. I don't think she's listed on here. Which would be kind of a shame. But the woman that plays Ghost, I forget her name. But So this was the first movie to come out after Avengers Infinity War. It was, but I guess it takes place around the same time as Infinity War. And I saw this in the theater. I actually, I tried to see all the Marvel movies in the theater. That has changed now that I've become a father and can't make it to the movie theater quite as often. But I did see this in the theater, and my initial reaction was that it was good. It was decent, but it wasn't as good as maybe the first Ant-Man, and suffered, I would say, from maybe not the world's greatest villain. What did you think about Ant-Man and the Wasp first time you saw it?
I thought it was okay.
Yeah.
And my feelings are largely the same.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Cool powers.
Right.
Interesting backstory. I don't know if I like much else though.
Really?
It's nothing against the actress. She's fine, but I don't know, man. It's just
Oh, just concerning the villain, not the movie in general. Or do you mean the movie in general?
It might be the movie in general. Her motives and like the plot points of the movie, they just chasing this building around,
right?
The lab for 75% of the movie, and you kind of almost forget what the whole point of the movie is, which is to get
Michelle Pfeiffer's character back.
Yeah, what's her name? The original Wasp, to get her out of the
Mama Pym.
Mama Pym.
I can't remember her name either. That's sad.
So the whole point of the movie is to get Mama Pym out of the quantum realm, but you forget about that because they chasing this lab around for the whole movie.
Right.
So the movie's funny. It's definitely funny. I chuckled more than a handful of times, but as far as the story, it's as far as Marvel movies go, it's pretty boring.
I totally understand where you're coming from. I also understand the criticism. I have a couple of criticisms of my own, but to be honest with you, I actually really like this movie. It works for me, but I also know that it shouldn't because of what you just said. But also, like, I watching it this time around, I was like, Paul Rudd's character Scott doesn't do anything.
He does not do anything.
He's just like along for the ride, which is like, if you've ever read a screenwriting book, your main character is not supposed to be reactive. He's supposed to be proactive. And he really doesn't do that. He's always, he gets kind of kidnapped by Hank and Wasp, whose name I'm blanking on now too. And Hope, thank you. Yeah, he gets kidnapped by Hank and Hope, and the whole time he's like, I got to get back. He's like, my house arrest is going to be done in 3 days. If they come back and I'm not there, I'm screwed. And they're like, we need you for this, and so he helps. He does say that, he didn't destroy the suit, and he's able to, do some stuff to help them. But most of the time, he doesn't really want to be there. He wants to be back home so that he doesn't mess up his future with Cassie.
Mhm.
and he does not really do anything to move the plot forward.
It's Hope's movie.
Right. Yeah, it really is. It should be the Wasp and Ant-Man, really,
Right.
because it is Hope's movie, and it is the whole plot of the movie is we got to get Hope's mom back. And there's just some of these things that happen that kind of keep that from happening. They ended up there's a ticking clock at some point when Michelle Pfeiffer's character kind of takes over Paul Rudd's body, which I do like that scene just because Paul Rudd does a really fantastic job playing that. She's like, you only have 2 hours or something, before this closes and like doesn't reopen for another century. And that's like kind of when the lab ends up going from Ghost to Walton Goggins' character, Sonny Birch. And so there's that ticking clock. We got to get this done within the next 2 hours. But you're right. There's not much to the movie. And the villain, I do think the villains are weak. Ghost has like you said, Ghost has interesting powers, and she's got a fairly interesting backstory. She's somewhat sympathetic, I can understand she's in pain. She wants it to stop, but she's not like very. I don't know. There's just she's not like super menacing, or she's especially for the first movie after Infinity War. We just got done watching Thanos, and then we go into this movie. That's part of the problem. But also Walton Goggins, Sonny Birch. He's just kind of almost a caricature. I love Walton Goggins. I think he's an incredible actor, but he's just he's that Southern gentleman bad guy. It's just like, I don't know. His character doesn't really work for me either. But I think the comedy in the movie, just Paul Rudd's performance, I wasn't bored watching it, but I do know that it has issues. So I still kind of like it.
I'm not saying that I dislike it. It's just, like you said, nothing happens, and what was keeping me in it was Paul Rudd.
Right.
Because Paul Rudd he's just genuinely funny. He's just a naturally goofy guy. But it just I don't know, man. Like nothing really happens in the movie that I really care about.
Right. I agree. Paul Rudd is the most interesting person to watch, and I think it's just because it's Paul Rudd. He's naturally funny. When the suit is malfunctioning at the school, that's a funny concept, but what makes that work, in my opinion, is Paul Rudd's. It's one of the notes I wrote is Paul Rudd's reactions. Like there's, he's hitting the button, he's like, it's just like his reactions are perfect in that scene, and that's what makes it funny to me.
Yeah. Conceptually, I like that scene, and it's definitely a funny scene. The what's the word? I guess CGI. The CGI is off
a little
in
bit.
That scene, especially when he gets back to the car. He's sitting in the seat, like you can clearly tell that it is green screen,
right?
At least for him.
Yeah,
and it is. I wouldn't say it's an eyesore, but it's so noticeable that it's distracting.
Yeah, I agree. There was even a moment in the school when it's him and Hope. I remember thinking that in the theater. I remember thinking the same thing. Like this looks fake. I did like the moment with the teacher though, because he puts the hoodie on from the Lost and Found, and the teacher's like, "Hey, where's your hall pass?" And he just stops, and then he's like, and then just starts running away. That part cracked me up. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah.
I will say I really like the opening to this movie. We start with a cold open, and it's again the first Ant-Man movie started with a de-aged Michael Douglas, and now we get a de-aged Michael Douglas and Michelle Pfeiffer in this movie, telling young Hope that they're going on a business trip. We find out that it's Ant-Man and the Wasp trying to disarm like a nuclear weapon or a rocket or something, and she ends up having to go in, between the molecules. She has to shrink down even further and into the quantum realm to stop it, and she does, but then of course she's lost. She can't get out of the quantum realm, and the cold open scene ends with current day Michael Douglas telling Hope I think I may have figured out a way to get her back. And then the Marvel logo starts. And I do think that it was a really good way to start the movie. It kind of gets you
Agreed.
excited and everything. And especially when the Marvel music starts playing, you're like, oh, all right. And I do really like the opening scene with Paul Rudd and his daughter, even though it's one of the coolest looking fort things that anyone has ever built. So it's almost,
right. I have never ever built a fort that elaborate.
Right now, it's unbelievable, really. But it's still like I wanted to go visit his house and go through his little ant fort and then ride the slide down the stairs and everything. But
his daughter is funny in that scene. She's very
really
funny.
She made me laugh out loud when Michael Pena shows up and she goes, "Oh no, the fuzz!" That was really good. I like that a lot. So yeah, and then of course that's when we find out, because this is post Civil War, obviously, and he went and helped Captain America, and so he's under house arrest. He's paying, the consequences for helping Captain America.
Yeah.
And so we find out he's in house arrest. He's got 3 days left, and then he'll be released. And of course, these events are taking place within those 3 days. And Randall Park, I think, is pretty good too. He plays Agent Wu from the FBI, who keeps showing up at Paul Rudd's house to basically check on him, when his alarms go off or whatever. Because in the very beginning, his foot goes through the fence and he broke the perimeter, so they show up and start doing a search of the house. I like too with Judy Greer, who plays his ex-wife, and Bobby Cannavale, who's her current husband. She's like, "You guys can't be here," and he's like, "Actually, they can." She's like, "You need a warrant," and he's like, "Actually, they don't."
Actually, they don't. I did like that scene when they showed up, because it showed some character development for their extended family. They've become closer because
Yep.
they see that Scott has he I won't say he's become noble. He's always been a pretty noble person, even in his
Thieving days.
criminal career. But he has embraced more of his heroic side, and has become um a lot less selfish, which
Right.
I thought was a nice touch. One thing that did feel weird was how uh Scott is trying to apologize for um not telling them about the events of Civil War,
Right.
and both Hank and Hope are kind of brushing it off. And I kind of get why, because the circumstances are dire, and they're urgent, and
Right.
they want to stay focused. But it part of me doesn't like that they kept brushing it off. Like, he was trying to be sincere. He was trying to do the right thing, and they just are not. They just don't want to listen, and it kind of bothered me.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, when the movie starts, they really aren't even on speaking terms. He's
Right.
got a phone that I think is a direct line to Hank Pym, but it's supposed to be for kind of emergencies only. And he
Yeah.
calls it after he has the dream where he dreamt that he was Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yeah.
And but we get the impression that they have not been speaking to him because because of the events of Civil War and him getting arrested, and because I think Hank and Hope are considered accomplices to an extent because he used Hank's technology. And so they're also kind of in hiding. So they're also kind of mad at him for putting them in, jeopardy, I guess. But yeah, you're right. They do. And I do like, though, there's a moment later on in the movie, though, where I think he kind of apologizes again. And he says, "If I had told you, would you have come with me to Germany?"
Mhm.
And she's like, "I guess we'll never know." She goes, "But I can tell you this, if I did go with you, you wouldn't have got caught."
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
kind of like that. So she, I think at that point she's kind of forgiven him.
And they do allude to the fact that they were uh, a couple, kind of.
Yeah.
They don't really. I guess they never made it official. But she said that we were doing other things together, which you know what that means.
Right, right.
Yeah, I guess once he went to where was the airport?
Germany, I believe, right?
Germany. Yeah, once he went to Germany with Cap, that was the end of that. That was probably the last time that they
They, s-
spoke
yeah,
was
probably.
before Germany.
Yeah,
Hope doesn't seem to be upset at all. Maybe a little annoyed, but not mad. But
right.
Hank, on the other hand, is very grumpy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Michael Douglas does a really great job at that. That's another, just one of the lines I wrote that I thought was really funny. It's you can kind of see it coming, but he's like, "Tell me you destroyed the suit." And he's like, "I destroyed the suit." And he's like, "You destroyed my suit," you know. And then when he finds out that he didn't destroy the suit, and he's like, "I sent it through the mail and delivered it like to myself or something," and he's like, "You sent my suit through the mail?" And Paul Rudd's reaction to that is great. He's like, "Hey, the postal service is very reliable."
He was like, "It was your life's work. I couldn't destroy it."
Right? Yeah. I like their dynamic. They play off each other pretty well. Michael
Oh,
Douglas and
definitely,
Paul Rudd.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. I think they do a little bit better job at that in the first movie. I mean, I honestly think that the first movie is just a better overall movie, even though I'm not crazy about either movie. Um,
I like the first
and
Ant-Man quite a bit. And part of that is
yeah,
cuz it's a heist movie and I really like that they kind of made like a superhero heist movie essentially.
yeah, yeah.
Um and I just think the villain in the first movie is a stronger villain. Um yeah, so the first Ant-Man I think is actually I really really enjoy the first Ant-Man. And like I said I enjoy this one too, but it's a weaker movie, but there's a lot of there's moments in this movie that I really really enjoy.
Yeah, there are definitely moments that I enjoy. It's just I think the story is weak. It lacks plot points, and
Yeah.
it's more of just happenstance and just moments just happening rather than the plot uh, moving forward.
Right, right. Yeah, I agree. I do like the element that they added in this movie where I mean, I guess it was in the first movie a little bit, but they have like the shrinking vehicles and the shrinking building. Although the note I wrote was, even though it's a great visual, you see the building shrink down. Hank walks over, pulls out the little handle, and starts rolling it towards the van. I was like, everything in that building, he just tipped it all. Everything in that building is just sliding across the floor into the whatever wall that the handle comes out of. I was like, I hope everything's bolted down inside that building.
Thought of that, but I think that Hank is smart enough to nail everything down.
Yeah, probably.
He probably just hit a switch and then some kind of adhesive was activated and then he rolled, shrunk it down and rolled it away.
Probably.
We get a new character with Lawrence Fishburne.
That's right.
He's in the comics he's Goliath. So instead of getting small, he gets big.
And they talk about that, about how when
Mhm.
they worked together during Hank's Shield days,
Mhm.
that he was like his record was 25 feet. And again, Paul Rudd is just so good in that scene. He's like, "How big did you get?" He's like, "Nah." He's like, 65
65 feet.
feet. But that's interesting. I actually did not know that he was Goliath. That makes a lot of sense.
Hmm.
Um,
They mentioned it briefly.
Codename Goliath, isn't that what they called it or something
Yeah,
like that? Yeah, yeah.
it was Project
Project
Goliath, I
Goliath. Yeah,
believe.
that's what it is. Yep, you're right. I'm actually on that scene right now. 65.
As am I.
Lawrence Fishburne, I think, is another fantastic actor. Does a good job in this movie. Just doesn't have a whole lot to do either. You
Yeah, he's
find
a
out
bit
that,
wasted.
yeah, you find out later that he's in cahoots with Ghost, and
Hmm.
he's, I can understand his,
Motivation.
uh, yeah, the word I can't think of the word against Hank, his anger or
Stain.
whatever towards Hank, but because Hank back in his Shield days was very arrogant and cut people out. That was in Ghost's backstory. Her dad worked with Hank
Mhm.
and got him fired, but not only fired but discredited. Hank was a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more not a great guy, I suppose, in his younger days. And Lawrence Fishburne's character got a little bit of that. And so, I can understand kind of the animosity, I guess is the word, maybe towards Hank. But he's trying to find the cure for Ghost. Ava is her name.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually he decides, it's not worth, because she wants it so badly, she needs it right now, and they're trying to get Mama Pym back. And if she goes through with her plan to fix herself, at that moment, it's gonna kill Mama Pym, which I don't totally understand. But Hank, at that point, Lawrence Fishburne's character is like, "Look, I'm not willing to sacrifice somebody's life for your life."
Right. Right. And she
he's
was
like,
willing to kidnap uh Scott's daughter.
"Yeah, Cassie, yeah,
Yeah.
yep, yeah," and he was not cool with that either. But yeah, he's just, I don't know. There wasn't a whole lot of meat to his character. There wasn't a whole lot of meat to Ghost's character. There's not a whole lot of meat to Walton Goggins' characters.
Says that, I mean, the movie doesn't have a whole lot of meat. It's
That's
just
true.
it's just I don't know. It's just bread. I like
it's
bread,
just an
but
appetizer.
it's just an appetizer. But you know what? Speaking of food, I think it could be considered a palate cleanser because Infinity War had just come out before. So I mean, what more could you do after that?
Right, right.
So I guess that's that's the tiny cracker you get after you drink the wine.
Again, appropriate since it's tiny.
And
I think the
bland.
best part about, I guess you could say the best thing to come from this movie is we see Evangeline Lilly as the Wasp. She was not the Wasp in the first movie. And so seeing her in costume, fighting alongside Ant-Man, or even, at first fighting by herself, and then Ant-Man kind of comes in to help out. Those are kind of the highlights of the film, I think, in my opinion, giving Evangeline Lilly the costume and the Wasp persona, I guess you could say.
I love her suit. I love both of their suits. I think Scott got a really good upgrade, and
I agree.
Hope's suit is great. I really like it.
Yeah. The scene I'm on is that one I was just talking about with his reaction where he hits the button, goes, awesome. He's like, awesome. It's great. But yeah, I think Evangeline Lilly is great as Hope. She's great as the Wasp. I actually really like their relationship too. I know you said you don't like how they kind of brush off his apology and everything, but by the end of the movie, we do see how they do care for each other, and I like that. And another actor who I think knocks it out of the park is Michael Pena. I will say, I think the whole little flashback thing with the lip syncing worked better in the first movie.
Yes.
There's something about it in this one that I don't like as much, and it might be the kind of the animated, because Paul Rudd really gets kind of goofy with it, and so does Evangeline Lilly. And maybe that was direction from Peyton Reed, I don't know, but I don't think it works quite as well in this movie, and I'm glad they only did it really kind of the one time.
It feels gimmicky in this movie, whereas in the first one it felt very very natural and logical for Michael Pena's character. This one it definitely feels like they were they were trying to activate the member berries. Like, remember this from the first one? We're gonna do it again. It's gonna be funnier, and it wasn't.
It also felt.
I mean, it was funny, but it wasn't funnier than the first movie. It wasn't. It probably wasn't as funny as the first movie.
Agreed. I was gonna say it also almost felt shoehorned in. Like they had to figure out a place. They felt like they needed to do it, and they had to figure out a place to do it. And I actually think the scene that happens right before that is funnier, where Sonny Birch, is like, my friend here is gonna give you a little dose of whatever that's gonna, blah blah blah, and they're like, oh, truth serum, and he's like, there's no such thing as truth serum, and he's like, well, what does that do? And he's like, it makes you highly suggestible and blah blah blah. And he's like, that's truth serum, and they're just constantly like,
there's
no,
no
bro, that's truth
such
serum.
thing as truth serum.
But even if we didn't get that flashback scene, I still think Michael Pena is so good in this movie.
Yeah.
Just his character, I really just enjoy watching his character talk and everything. One of the disappointments I had with the film, and it was almost one of the last notes I wrote, was the whole movie they're discussing this deal with Mr. Kapetian or something like that. And it's, they've got this new business and they're installing or they're going to quote him for like installing security cameras and everything on this guy's house. We never see him, and I kind of thought it would have been a cool, Stan Lee has a different cameo in this film, I believe, but it would have been kind of a cool, it could have made Stan Lee that cameo and made him Mr. Kapetian.
Yeah, I don't even
or
remember
something.
Stan Lee's cameo.
Does he? I think he gets his car shrunk or something like that. He's about to get into I can't remember. I watched this movie about a week ago because I got the wrong movie. When we recorded last weekend, I watched the wrong movie, so I didn't really rewatch it this week. But I'm pretty sure he's got a cameo in this because I know Captain Marvel came out after this, and he's got a cameo in that.
Yeah, on the bus.
On the bus. And then Endgame, was Endgame his last cameo? Or did he have one in Far From Home?
It's a good question. I think Endgame was his last cameo.
I think it was too. So he's got a cameo in this movie. But yeah, I can't remember exactly what it is. But yeah, I just thought that was a little disappointing. I wish we could have seen Mr. Kapetian, and they end up getting the deal like on the phone or something, I think Louise, is like, it would be an honor to work with you too, sir. That type of thing. I think it would have been cool to have. I mean, you could have made that anybody. It could have been a cool, Matt Damon could have showed up or something, and been Mr. Kapetian and had a little cameo. I think it would have been neat. But so I was a little disappointed we never got to see that guy because they talk about him the entire movie, and so it almost feels like they're building up to something, and then it just kind of was just, hey, we landed the gig, and so it was fine, but I think it was a missed opportunity in my opinion.
Agreed. I agree.
When we first learn about Ava, she gives, her backstory about, she runs into her dad was continuing experimenting with stuff and it goes badly and she ran into the building. Her parents die, but she's left with this weird, like, phasing in and out of, I don't know if it's reality or what, but the fire, I think it's either a policeman or like a fireman shows up and tries to like pick her up and his arms just go right through her,
Yeah.
And then when we say what?
Quantum phasing.
Quantum phasing, yes, quantum, of course. I forgot. How can I forget the word quantum? They use it all throughout this movie, and of course the next one coming out very soon. He was like,
do you guys just put the word quantum in front of everything?
And Marvel said, yes, we do. And the Man and the Wasp, Quantum Mania. But when Lawrence Fishburne first finds Ava, he gives her a teddy bear and she can't grab it. And again, this is a nitpicky thing because obviously we have to make some kind of, suspension of disbelief here. But I wrote, if Ava can't touch the teddy bear, how is she sitting on the bed?
I thought about the same thing. I'm like, if she can't touch the teddy bear, how does she put on clothes?
Right. Yeah.
How does she not fall through the floor when she's walking?
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's one of those things where you just kind of have to go with it.
Yeah.
But it's one of the problems with that character, I suppose, is it's just kind of almost I wouldn't say a plot hole, but almost like a character hole,
Yes, it's a bit of an oversight.
Right. Now, I'm curious because she does get cured at the end of the film. Once Mama Pym shows up, we really got to learn her name. Once Mama Pym shows up.
Janet Van Dyne.
Janet, thank you. Once Janet shows up, she, like, puts her hand on Ghost's face, Ava's face, and, like, fixes her,
Yeah.
But isn't Ghost going to be part of the Thunderbolts in that, when the Marvel's Thunderbolts comes out? I think she's part of that roster.
She was.
Oh.
2 or 3 days ago at the time of this recording, they removed her from the roster.
Oh, okay.
So she's still gonna show up somewhere else in the MCU we just don't know where she's going to show up. But it's no longer going to be Thunderbolts.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if she still has the power to phase in and out, quantum phasing. She just can maybe control it now.
Yeah. Well,
and it's not causing her any pain.
Yeah, I think that it was always like an ability of hers because she doesn't need the suit to do it. The suit just
Right.
helps her control it. And I think that the suit going forward will allow her to continue to phase.
Okay. All right.
She's like, she was, she's kind of like Winter Soldier-esque because they were like, the Shield was using her for different covert ops and stuff. And which
kind
I
of an
thought was
assassin and
cool.
what stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. It's just, you know, I think her backstory is cooler than whatever she's doing in the movie.
Right. Yeah. 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 I mean, again, it's kind of it is kind of weak in terms of like only Hank Pym can Hank Pym's technology can save her. Again, I don't really know how or why. And so they need the lab because that's where all of his technology is. But and so that, you know, it's just, and it just happens to be around the same time they're trying to get Janet back. I don't know. It is kind of convenient.
If you think about it like that, you wouldn't like any movie.
It's true, I suppose.
But the ironic part is that Hank doesn't even save her. It's Janet. It's
Right.
Janet that cures her, and I like the way they explain that. When Janet is in the quantum realm, she says, you know, it's not just adaptation; it's evolution. Like this place changes you over the course of time. So I thought that was interesting. So she comes out with these, you know, new abilities to, I guess, manipulate matter.
Yeah.
Or, you know,
basically
at least
now.
At least organic matter. She can manipulate, you know, ghosts and her physiology.
Right. What did you think about Hank going down into the quantum realm and all that whole scene, you know, with the little vehicle that he pilots down there?
I thought it was cool. I really don't have a whole lot to say about it, but I thought it was cool. I thought it looked cool. Yeah.
I think visually going down to the quantum realm is always kind of looks cool, and seeing those like tardigrade things coming towards him, you know, that was like, it's cool but creepy at the same time a little bit. And then he ends up shrinking down even farther, and getting to see him and Michelle Pfeiffer kind of reunite, and she's still kind of got part of the Wasp mask as kind of her face mask.
Yeah, she has the front, but not the back, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, I liked that a lot.
This movie is it's the Marvel movie that non-Marvel fans complain about.
I can see that.
Yeah, it's they you know, a lot of Marvel's criticisms are just, you know, an excuse to have fun with not a whole lot of substance.
Yeah.
And this is that movie.
Yeah.
With a little less fun.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, I can understand those criticisms, and you know, they're not wrong. One thing I really do enjoy about the movie, and one of the things I enjoy about the first Ant-Man, is the music. I think Ant-Man's theme, I just think, is a lot of fun. It really has grown on me.
Yeah, I've always liked Ant-Man. See, I even though I didn't really care for the first one when it first came out, the movie itself grew on me. But I've always loved Ant-Man's theme.
Yeah. The composer is Christoph Beck, and I think he does a fantastic job with this movie. And in fact, we haven't talked about the mid-credit scene yet. We'll get there, but it ends on a bit of a downer note. And the music that plays over the credits after that scene is kind of a piano version of Ant-Man's theme. And I had forgotten completely about, that music. And so watching it this time, I was like, this song is amazing. And I pulled
I
up
didn't even listen to it.
I pulled up the soundtrack on my phone and I was like, is this on the soundtrack? And I found it and I was like, I've been listening to it all week, dude. It starts off, it's like this kind of, it's just like a piano slow kind of version of Ant-Man's theme on piano, and it just works so well. And then it gradually gets bigger and becomes kind of the Ant-Man theme towards the end. And I've just, man, it's awesome. I love
I'm
it.
gonna check it out.
Yeah, you should. And so, yeah, I really, really like the music in this movie and in the first Ant-Man. I think Christoph Beck did a really, really good job. I hope he comes back. I haven't looked, but I'm assuming he's the composer for the third one. And I can't wait to see what he does in that one. And, maybe I don't know if he's coming up with like a Kang theme or what, but I can't wait to hear the music in that film.
I'm really excited for Quantumania.
Me too.
After that second trailer, I was like, yeah, I need it. I'm ready. Like Jonathan Majors looks amazing as Kang. He looks amazing.
I haven't watched the second trailer. I'm trying to avoid it. I want to try to go see the movie without it.
It is a story trailer, and it does get a little spoilery, but
yeah.
It's awesome nonetheless.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Oh my goodness, just Jonathan Majors looks amazing. Oh,
absolutely, can't wait. I think by the time this comes out, it'll be out already. But well, I guess let me go ahead and talk about the mid-credit scene. I wrote down that so after Janet comes back, that's pretty much the end of the movie, and Scott gets, released from his house arrest, and he's able to finally get out of the house and everything, spend time with Cassie outside. And the movie ends, and then after the first part of the credits, we see Hope, Janet, Hank, and Scott all kind of experimenting with the quantum realm and the quantum tunnel. They made a smaller one and put it in the back of Scott's van. And we get a little bit of a hint at what Endgame is going to do, because she says something about don't get stuck in like a time vortex or something.
Yeah.
But while he's in the quantum realm, that's when Thanos snaps his fingers, and he's like, all right, Scott's in the quantum realm, and he's going, okay, pull me back out, guys. And we cut to, I remember hearing people in the theater.
Yeah.
It cuts back outside to where Hank, Hope, and Janet were, and they're just the dust, falling. And people in my theater were like, oh, they were just like, oh my God.
Same thing for me. The people in my theater were like, oh man, no, he's stuck.
And I think it was a great post-credit scene, because then all you hear is over the radio, Scott being like, guys, and then it cuts to black, and that's when that piano music starts playing, and oh my God, it's so good. And then at the very end of the credits, actually, it says Ant-Man and the Wasp will return, and then it has a question mark show up, and it was like, will return? Which I thought was clever. But I did write, my note was, again, maybe I could see non-Marvel fans complaining about this. We spent the entire movie rescuing Janet, and then in the mid-credit sequence, she gets snapped out of existence. So it's like the entire movie is kind of undone in the mid-credit sequence.
Yeah. I could see that being a complaint. I don't necessarily have that complaint. I think that the movie, the movie itself is just lacking.
Sure.
But the post-credit scene, ironically, is the best part of the movie.
Yeah.
Or the mid-credit scene.
Yeah. I do like the chase through San Francisco. I like how, again, Scott's suit keeps messing up, and so like he's big for that one part, and he kind of uses that truck as like not quite a skateboard, but like a scooter. Almost. Yeah. I enjoyed that. And I do like, he gets huge, and he's like, I'm going to take a nap. And like, that whole last act, I think, is a lot of fun. Even with,
too big.
Yeah, he gets too big. Even with Sonny Birch's character, who, is a weak villain. But I do like the whole chase sequence towards the end of the film. Well, Stu, I'm curious because I know you said this is one of the weaker MCU movies. What would you rate Ant-Man and the Wasp?
It's tough.
It is kind of tough.
This is tough. I'm gonna give it 2.5.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And like I said, I don't dislike it. Just nothing happens.
Yeah.
And that's a big crime for a movie, especially a Marvel movie. It's funny. It looks good, like, for the most part, except for the those few moments of the CGI that we mentioned. But with the exception of those, it looks good. The costume design is great. I think they did right by Hope, aka the Wasp, but the villains are weak. Despite Ghost having very cool powers and a pretty cool look and backstory, is just that her motivation is weak. She doesn't do much in the movie. Walter Goggins, his character is weak, and just the story itself is just uh they just running around
Right.
chasing this building.
The building, yeah.
And
which is a
just,
funny sentence.
Yeah, it's just it gets old after a while, and like I said, I don't dislike the movie, but this, along with Captain Marvel, are the Marvel movies that I watched the least.
Yeah. This was only the second time I'd seen it. I kind of remembered thinking that it was not.
The third time I've seen it.
Yeah, I remember thinking in the theater that it was okay. That's kind of how I felt about it too. I think I enjoyed it a little bit more this time around. I think because maybe I went into it thinking this is one of the weaker ones, and I don't know. I just kind of I did enjoy it this time around for whatever reason. So I'm gonna go a little bit higher than you. I think the music, the comedy just kind of works for me a little bit, but I agree with everything else you said. I wish I could give it like 2.75, but I'm going to go with three world's greatest grandma trophies, I think.
Yeah, it has a few redeeming qualities, and it's not, it doesn't it doesn't offend me, but it's just
right.
the fact that nothing happens is it definitely bothers me, and I wish that wasn't the case.
All right, well, we'd love to know what you think about Ant-Man and the Wasp. Is it one of your favorite Marvel movies? Is it one of your least favorite? Let us know. You can always comment at cinemaheroes.com. You can also tweet at us or comment on our Instagram. Both handles are at cinemaheroes. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can always leave a comment below. And if you are watching this on YouTube, give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'd love to hear from you however you want to reach out to us. I think that about wraps it up for this episode, though. I'm Justin Speck.
Jay Stu.
As always, thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing.